morning, Year 6, and welcome to your Wednesday's maths lesson. Our walk for today is to find percentages of amounts. We're going to start off with some of the basics, so we're going to be looking at 50%, 25% and 75%. Now these are not as complicated as some of the others, so let's have a look at the first one. 50% of 440. Now I know 50% means half, or divided it by 2. So I'm just going to half this number, or divide it by 2. How many 2's are in this number? So half 400 would be 200, and half 40 would be 20. So 50% of 440 is 220. Let's have a look at the next one. We've got 25% here of 660. Now I know 25% is the same as a quarter, and I know to find a quarter, can divide it by 4, which is the same as halving it and then halving it again. So half 660 would be 330. That's half, that's 50%, but I want 25%. So I'd have to half this again. Well, half 300 is 150, and half 30 is 15. And then I would just add them together. 0 add 5. 5, 50 add 10 is 60, and 1 add nothing is 1. So 25% of 660 is 165. Now what I would say to do Year 6 is to use some jottings like I've done. It will take you 30 seconds and it will just make sure that you get the right answer rather than trying to do it all in your head. Let's have a look at the next one. We've got 75% of 410. Now there are quite a few ways you might do this. Some of you might decide to change 75% into a fraction and get 3/4, and then do the method that we've shown you on how to calculate fractions of amounts. Some of you might choose to find 25% and then take it off the original number. That's absolutely fine, whichever way works for you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find 25% first. So we'll try to find 25% by halving it and halving it again. So half of 410 would be 205, a little jot in there. Half 200 would be 100, and half of 5 would be 2.5. So that means 25% is 102.5. That's not the answer though, because I need to do 75%. So I know that 25 times 3 is 75%. So that means I need to times this 102 by 3 as well. So again, decimal point in. 3 times 5 is 15. 5 there, a little 1 there to add on after. 3 times 2 is 6. Add 1 is 7. 3 times nothing is nothing. And 3 times 1 is 3. So the answer, 75% of 410, is 307.5. Just make sure your digits are really clear. It's a little bit tricky doing it like this, but just make sure that actually looks like what it should look like. And let's have a look at the next one. 10% of 750. Right, so this is where it gets a little bit trickier now. So 10%, so to find 10% of a number, well, I know that we divide it by 10. And I know that because when we're talking about percentages, we mean out of 100. And if you think back to that 100 square I showed you on Monday, there are 10 lots of 10 in that. So to find 10%, we divide it by 10. So 10% of 750 is 75. If you put the answer 75.0, that's still right because it's the same, isn't it? But you don't need to put the 0.0, you can just put 75. Let's have a look at this next one then, 20% of 150. So I would start off with 10%. I know how to find 10%, I've just done it. I divide it by 10. And I divide it by 10 because there's 10 lots of 10 in 100. So 10% of 150 is 15. That's not the answer though, because I need to find 20%. Now, double 10 is 20, so double 15 is 30, and that gives me the answer. 20% of 150 is 30. Let's have a look at the next one. 30% of 479. So again, I'm going to start with 10%. 10%, I need to divide it by 10, and I know that is 47 point, should get your point in there, 0.9. 47.9. But I don't want 10%, I want 30%. So what have I done to get from 10 to 30? Well, I know that I've times that by 3. So that means I've got to times this by 3. So I've got to do 47.9 times by 3. Decimal point in. 9 times 3, 9, 18, 27. 7 there. Little 2 to add on. 3 times 7, 7, 14, 21 is 21. Add 2, 22, 23. 3 there. A little 2 to add on after there. 3 times 4 is 12. Add 2, 13, 14. So the answer is 143. 143.7. Okay, and the last one that we're going to have a look at for an example is 60% of 340. So again, let's find 10%. 10%, we divide 340 by 10, which is going to give us 34. What have I done to get from 10 to 60? Well, times by 6. So that means I have to times 34 by 6. Times by 6. 6 times 4, 6, 12, 18, 24. So 4 there, a little 2 there to add on. 6 times 3, 6, 12, 18. Add 2, 19, 20. The answer would be 60% of 340 is 204. So when you're doing these year 6 on your My Maths task, use some paper and do some jottings. Don't try and do it all in your head. Okay, you might get another question like this today, something similar to this. Mrs. Mehebi's daughter gets £5.60 pocket money per week. Calculate 10%, 5% and 20% of this amount. Right, so that's how much she gets, £5.60. So let's start with 10% then. So 10% of £560. Well, 10% of £5.60 is I need to divide it by 10. So to divide it by 10, move the digits one space to the right. So I would get £0.56. On your My Maths activity, you might not get an option to put the £0 in. You might just have to put 56p. So you might just write it something like that. Okay, it's the same. Right, so that's 10% done. Now 5%, the way to do 5%, well, I know that 5 is half 10. So if 10% is 56, I would just half that to get 5%. So half 56p. So again, there's no pounds. Well, half 50p, you might make a little jotting somewhere, half 50p is 25p, half 6p is 3p, so that'll be 28p. And if you've already got the pound sign, you don't need to put the pen sign, you only put the pen sign if you've not got the pound sign. And again, on your My Maths, you might just be asked to write it like that without the pound sign. That's 5% done. Now 20%, we've just practiced 20%. So 20% again, I'm going to start off with the 10%. So I know 10% is 56p. 20 is double that amount, isn't it? So I need to double 56p, or I can times it by 2, it's the same. So I could do, you can do it in your head, you might do this in your head, but if not, you can do 0.56 times it by 2, because we're just doubling it. Decimal point in. 2 times 6 is 12, 2 there, a little 1 there. 2 times 5 is 10, add 1. 1 there, 1 there. 2 times nothing is nothing, add 1. So that would give us £1.12. And remember, we don't put the pence sign if we've got the pound sign. And we've done 20%. And the last question that you might get something like today is this one. Mrs. Mehebi's daughter spends 15% of her pocket money on sweets, 65% of it on iTunes, and the rest goes in her savings. Calculate how much she spends on sweets, iTunes, and how much goes in her savings. Right, so we know she gets £5.60. So I might just write that down again. And again, this is a perfect chance for you to get some paper, do your jotting. So let's have a look. 15%. Oof, right. I'm going to start with 10%. I've just done that. It's 56p. That's my pound sign. A little bit tricky doing it like this. So I've just worked out 10% is 56p. If I want, I can go back and look at 5%, which is 28p, or I could just work it out again. 5%. Well, half 50 is 25, half 6 is 3, 25 and 3 is 28p. But you've actually already done it there, haven't you? So we want 15%. So I've worked out 10%, I've worked out 5%. So I need to add them together. Because 10 add 5 gives us 15. So then I can add these amounts together. Okay, to use your ruler. Decimal points in. 6 add 8 is 14. 4 pennies there, and 10p there. 50p or 20p is 70p, add 10p is 80p. No pounds. So she's spending 15% of her pocket money on sweets. So on sweets, you might write down somewhere. There, she spends, oh, it's not very neat, is it? She spends 84p on sweets. She's not spending a lot. She might just buy some Skittles or something. So that's sweets. I'm going to just rub out this working out now so I don't get confused, but I've worked out sweets is 84p. Right, the next bit we've got to do, let's have a look. Done the sweets. The next bit, 65% goes on iTunes. Right, well, we've already worked out 10%. We know 10% is 56p. 56p. But I don't want 10%, I want 65%. So what have I done to get from 10% to 60%? I've times it by 6. So I need to times this by 6. Decimal point in. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 till 3 to add up. 6 times 5 is 30, add 3 is 33. 3 there, 3 there. 6 times nothing is nothing, add 3 is 3. That's not the answer yet though, because that's 60%, and she actually spends 65% of it on iTunes. Now we've just worked out what 5% is. If we know 10% is 56p, now 5% is half that, so that's 28p, so £0, 28p. So I now need to add, because that's 60% there, I need to add this amount and this amount to get 65%. So I do £3.36. I'm doing a lot of jottings on this question, aren't I? Plus £0.28. 6 add 8 is 14. 4p there, another 10p there. 30p or 20p is 50p. 10p is 60p. £3 and nothing is £3. So then iTunes, we've got there. iTunes is £3.64. And the last one, let's do the last one now. Let's see how much goes in her savings. So I'm just going to rub out my calculations there. Okay, so put my pen back on. So the question is now she's done 65% on iTunes, we've done that, and the rest goes in her savings. Calculate how much she spends on sweets, iTunes, and how much goes in her savings. We've got the sweets, we've got the iTunes, now let's see how much goes in her savings. Well, what I would do now is I need to add the iTunes and the sweets up. So we've got £3.64, add £0.84. So how much you spent. Decimal point in. 4 add 4 pence is 8 pence. 60 pence add 80 pence, £1.40. And £3 on nothing, add £1 is £4. Right, but again, that's not the answer. That's how much she's spent. We need to know how much goes in her savings. Well, this is the amount she gets for her pocket money. So I need to do now £5.60. Take away what she spends on her sweets and her iTunes. And the rest is what goes in the savings. So let's have a look here. So 0 take away 8, well that would give me a negative number. So I'm going to take from this column, we'll take 10 pence, I'll make that now 50 pence, and we'll put that 10 pence there. So I've now got 10 pence take away 8 pence is 2 pence. 50 pence take away 40 pence is 10 pence. That's your 10 pences column, isn't it? Your tenths and your hundredths. And then you've got £5 take away £4 is £1. So what goes into her savings is £1.12, and that's into her savings there. So quite a lot of steps to do on those last questions on your My Maths today, and that's why it's so important to use jottings. So your task, work through the My Maths lesson if you are unsure. So if you feel comfortable just going on what I've just done, that's absolutely fine, but I'd probably always have a little look at the My Maths lesson as well, just to make sure. Step 2, complete the My Maths homework task. And like I've said today, do use pencil and paper to show you working out and help you with jottings. And number 3, try the homework several times to try and score 100%. Like I said yesterday, we've had lots more children really trying to push their scores up, so keep that up. Okay, and that's all for today. Good luck everyone. See you tomorrow.